Good morning. I'd like to call this appeal meeting to order for February 12th, 2025. I'm Devi Sharma, City Councillor and Chairperson of the committee today. Joining me is Councillor Marcus Chambers and Councillor Ross Eady, and also members of the administration and our clerk. I'd like to first begin by acknowledging that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. And members of the administration are Ms. Simi Jerez, Senior Planner, Planning, Property and Development, and Mr. Robert Galston, District Planner, Planning, Property and Development, and our clerk, of course, Mr. Brendan Harris. Thank you for your service today. Do we have minutes or anything from last meeting? Yes. Councillor Eady, would you move the minutes of the meeting held January 23rd?
So moved, Madam Chairperson.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, that's carried. We have 2 items on the agenda, 3 actually, and I'll turn this over to our clerk.
In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the appellant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the appeal. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the appellant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made, however, no new information is permitted. Please note that when your name is called, it's your opportunity to speak, however, you are not obligated to do so. For a more in-depth overview of the public hearing process and other information pertaining to what happens before, during, and after a public hearing, please consult the City Clerk's Department website. Please note that all public hearings are recorded and will be a part of the public record. Should you have any questions after the hearings have concluded, please contact the City Clerk's Department. Item 1 is an appeal against the decision of the Director of Planning, Property and Development to approve a conditional use for 2401 Inkster Boulevard under file DCU 1284886A/2024C. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing, and the following item will also be heard at the same time. Namely, item 2 is an appeal against the decision of the Director of Planning, Property and Development to approve a variance for 2401 Inkster Boulevard under file DAV 139534A/2024C. Please note communications were received in support of and in opposition to the appeal, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. At this time, I'll turn it over to the planner for a brief overview.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jerez.
The subject property is located at the northwest corner of Inkster Boulevard and Cleveland Street in the North Inkster industrial area of the Old Kildonan ward. It's zoned A agricultural. The applicant has applied for a conditional use to establish heavy equipment sales, service, and rental use, as well as a variance to allow for the maintenance of a gravel surface parking area instead of hard surfacing. The public service has recommended approval of both, subject to a number of conditions. With respect to the conditional use, the public service included 5 conditions. First, that the conditional use expire 5 years from the date of the order. Second, that the order go into effect if and when Cleveland Street is closed and consolidated with the subject property. 3, that the parking, vehicle display, and outside storage area must not be located in the required front or west side yards, abutting the existing residential neighbor, that is. And we require condition director plan approval, and that there would be 2 years to establish the use. If it's the will of the committee, I can speak more about the reasons for those conditions, or I'd be happy to circle back to it as you have more questions.
Go ahead.
Okay, so with respect to the 5-year expiry on the use, the area is in transition with commercial and or industrial rezonings anticipated in the coming years. This is on the north side of Inkster. Properties to the north and west have already been rezoned, and this remains a pocket of land where rezoning has not yet occurred between Inkster and Mobile Streets on the north side of Inkster Boulevard. Given this, the public service feels that the agricultural zoning may not be appropriate in the near future, and the conditional use gives the city an opportunity to review what the surrounding lands look like in 5 years, how the uses are changing. With respect to the street closing, Public Works indicated that heavy equipment should not take access from the existing approach onto an unimproved road that's not built to accommodate this use, and they would not permit access directly onto Inkster Boulevard, which is a major route. So Cleveland would provide, if consolidated with the site, would provide more room for movements, especially for larger equipment. The recommended way forward is for the applicant to close Cleveland Street, consolidate it with their property, and use it as their access. This property is the only one that uses Cleveland Street, and by closing the street, they would become responsible for the access and any wear and tear that heavy equipment would put on it. The Public Service had recommended the closing occur before the conditional use and variance, but the applicant wished to proceed with these applications first. Consequently, we've placed this condition, meaning if the road closing does not go ahead, the conditional use would not come into effect. Lastly, with respect to the gravel surfacing, we've recommended a time limit of 5 years, and that upon complaint to the city, a dust inhibitor be applied to the parking area. The time limit on the conditional use and parking are tied. If the conditional use was to be approved with no time limit, the Public Service would recommend that the parking area be paved per the zoning bylaw. However, proceeding without paving it would allow it to transition to a different use if in 5 years, the owner and Public Service were to regard this property in a different way. And that concludes the overview. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Eady?
How far north does the street go that's being closed off?
I believe it extends, I'll double check, all the way to Haggart.
All the way to where?
All the way to Haggart, but they would close the portion of the street abutting the property, the west side, or pardon me, east side of the property.
So what's up to Haggard? If you got access to that road, if you have to get onto your, like, does their property go all the way to Haggard?
No, it doesn't. There's another property north of it. And I understand that the applicant reached out to that neighbor regarding a closing, but didn't receive a positive response, as that neighbor has access to Mobile Street, as well as, I believe, to Wolf Avenue along the north edge of their property.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Now, just to be clear, this is not for passenger vehicles.
That's correct.
It's for heavy equipment only, right?
Yes, that would entail semis, agricultural equipment, et cetera.
Right. Because under the conditional use, under agriculture zoning, it's not, commercial vehicles are not permitted.
That's correct.
Okay.
Hold on a sec though. Employees of this business will be able to drive onto there though, right?
The personal vehicles, they could park there. It would be different in use than auto sales for passenger vehicles.
Very good. Mr. Clerk, do we have
So
anyone appearing today?
we haven't had anyone register in support of the appeal. I'll just confirm with the gallery. Is there anyone here to speak in support of the appeal? Seeing none, we did have one registration in opposition to the appeal to speak. Anna John Dillon. If you'd like to come forward to the front, you'll have up to 10 minutes to make your presentation after you state your name.
At the end of the,
Just at the.
you can have a seat.
sit down.
you can have a seat there.
Okay.
Just state your name for the record.
My name is Ananjot Cortillo. John Winthrop couldn't be here due to an issue. So basically we had this property, bought this property in 2023, and we've been trying to get this going. So we want to use this property as heavy equipment sale. And we know that the city does want us to close Cleveland, and we are willing to do that as well. And also create more of a bigger opening, so it's easier to go onto the property, so there isn't too much traffic created as well. And we have heard all the conditions, and we also would work with them. And so we can get this property going, as we had it for a really long time. It's just kind of stuck and we're not able to use it as well. That's all I would like to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much. Yes.
Just a few questions here. So in 2023, you purchased it. What was the intent of?
Intent was to use it for heavy equipment sale. Also, further down the road. So when we bought this property, we did know that the previous owner did use it for a dealership purpose. Right now, we are into heavy equipment because we do have trucking. So we kind of do want to use it for that. Further down the road, if everything goes well and we can get zoning changed, then we might consider if we can use it for a dealership.
And in terms of the commercial vehicles, you've been doing that as well, but maybe weren't aware of the proper zoning?
Yes, yeah, so basically we were told, because we work with John Winthrop, and we were told that we can have a certain amount of limit on there. We currently use 306 Stanley Street for our dealership right now, but we did have some cars because our cars were getting broken down and people were breaking in at Stanley right now. And we have just because we're renting that place and that owner does know. So we did move some vehicles for safety onto the Inster property.
What is the name of the other dealership?
The one that's originally like the owner, that's Auto Works,
And
and
you said you had a different one offsite.
also one currently renting on 306, we have Range Auto Sale, but the original owner for that property is Auto Works.
Okay. And you're planning to apply for a rezoning or currently? are you-
Yes, yeah, after, but we first want to start with our heavy equipment. Yes.
It's important to connect with the area counselors when you do that.
Yeah.
Any Counselor Chambers?
Yeah, there's a house currently on the lot.
Yes, there is.
And you
Yeah.
plan on maintaining it there?
Yes,
that
planning on
would be the
maintaining it,
office?
yes, and then get a permit and then change it into an office as well. Yes.
And how much equipment do you plan on storing on here? I mean, how many, what's the size of the lot?
It's, I think roughly 0.
It's under an acre.
It's under acre for sure. 100%.
So how much equipment do you plan on storing?
Not as much. We're thinking, cause obviously like we're not officially like, we only have trucking right now, but we have kind of gotten into this field when we've seen that this industry is growing. So we kind of want to bring at least 7 units on and then see if it actually works, then we'll kind of progress.
And is that the heavy equipment sales? Or just
Yes, so it'd be
storage?
semi trucks and stuff.
Right,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah,
Very good. And what is someone occupying the home right now?
no one is.
So it's unoccupied, you may turn it into an office or we'll use it as an office.
Yes, use it as an office, and then John did say that we can get a permit, if we follow all the conditions, turn it into an office. Yes, yeah.
These are service lands. It's service lands, it's not sewer and,
So we did get a log grading plan. They did say that we would have to put a easement, like a catch basin on the property.
Mhm.
So there is one that they are saying to locate right in front of the property. And we know that, like, I guess the city would say if we're buying Cleveland, if we want to take over that street, they would want some portion from the front of the property, which we're willing to do and get the log grading plan, as they say.
Calendar.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation and we'll be in touch in the future, I'm sure.
For sure. Thank you.
Mr. Clerk?
Just to confirm with the gallery, is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to the appeal? And is there anyone who would like to speak for information on the appeal? Seeing none, we could have questions for the administration.
Any further questions for Ms. Rez? Anything you'd like to add based on what we've heard? I think all the details have been put on the public record. I don't think there's anything more. Okay, Mr. Clerk?
This time we can move into motions.
you want to take the chair or?
Yes, Council Chambers, would you take the chair for me?
Good. Greg, go ahead.
Move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
I'll move that in accordance with subsection 254 and subsection 2473 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, the conditional use is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and any applicable secondary plan. It does not create a substantial adverse effect on the amenities, use, safety, and convenience of the adjoining property and adjacent area, including an area separated from the property by a street or waterway, and it is compatible with the area in which the property to be affected is situated. My supporting reasons, Mr. Chair, is we've seen the report here from our planning department. They worked collaboratively with the consultant and the owner. And there are next steps to possibly apply for rezoning, and they understand that this is for heavy equipment only. We've heard from the owner today. And I'm concurring with what we see in the report.
I'll be voting in favor. The 5-year conditional use makes sense as Inkster. I mean, it's slowly progressing, right? So I think it's appropriate.
Thank you. And as we noted, I always suggest to liaise with the area councilors to talk about next steps when you're doing something different to do with the rezoning. With that, Mr. Chair, you'll call the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
I'll move that the appeal be denied and the decision of the Director of Planning, Property and Development be concurred in.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
That the conditional use order DCU 128486 of 2024C be confirmed.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Move that public hearing with respect to this appeal be completed.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
You will take the chair back.
You got
There's variance.
the variance.
Yes. Variance, do that as well. I'll move that the report of the public service be taken as read.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Move that
Opposed,
Aye.
carried.
Move that in accordance with subsection 2473 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, the variance is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and any applicable secondary plan. Does not create a substantial adverse effect on the amenities, use, safety, and convenience of the adjoining property and adjacent area, including an area separated from the property by a street or waterway. It is the minimum modification of the zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect of the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property, and it is compatible with the area in which the property to be affected is situated. Supporting reasons, same as the conditional use.
Any other comments, Counselor? Edie? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Move that the appeal be denied and the decision of the Director of Planning, Property and Development be concurred in.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Move that the variance order DAB 139534 2024C be confirmed.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Move that the public hearing with respect to this appeal be
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Mr. Clerk.
So it's time to go into our final.
Thank you.
Item 3 is an appeal against the decision of the Assiniboia Community Committee to approve a variance for 199 Parkview Street under file DAV 186-853A/2024D. Members of the committee, please note communications were received in support of and in opposition to the appeal, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. All participants have been muted and will only be permitted to speak when called upon. Once you've been heard, you can either remain in the Zoom meeting or leave and continue to watch live via the city's YouTube channel. At this time, I'll turn it over to the planner for a brief overview.
Very good. Thank you. The subject site is located on the east side of Parkview Street, south of Portage Avenue. This is in the Bruce Park neighborhood of the St. James Ward. The subject site is approximately 5,973 square feet in size and is currently zoned R1M, a residential single-family zoning district. It currently contains a one-story place of worship building. This land is located in the Established Neighborhoods Mature Communities Policy Area under the Complete Communities Direction Strategy 2.0 and is also located in Area 1 of the Residential Infill Guidelines area. The applicant is proposing a multifamily building. Their application was for a building that was 3 stories in height and a total number of units being 8. Subdivision and rezoning application, as well as a variance application, was required in order to accommodate this proposal. These applications were heard by the Assiniboia Community Committee on October 31st of 2024. The Assiniboia Community Committee approved the subdivision and rezoning subject to a maximum of 6 dwelling units to be built and a maximum height of 28 feet to the top of the building. So this would essentially create a 2-story building. Additionally, the community committee required that plan approval by the community committee be required for any development. So final plans will need to go back to the community committee for approval. With respect to the variance application, which is before this committee today, the Assiniboia Community Committee approved variances to allow a lot area of 5,973 square feet, a south side yard of 8 feet, a north side yard of 8.5 feet, a variance to allow insufficient building foundation landscaping, 7 parking stalls, but under the limit of 6 units that the committee put on this, this variance would be null and void. It's pointless because they would meet their parking with only 6
It's
units.
originally for 8, right?
Correct. There's a variance for no guest parking that was approved and a variance for insufficient buffering of a parking area. The
What's
Winnipeg,
the rationale around no guest parking?
they have, in their plans, they have, it was for an 8-unit building. They have spaced for only 7 vehicles and they wanted to designate all of those for tenants. So that, they're not providing any guest parking.
So it's gonna be on street parking.
That would be the, yeah, that would be how that would work. So the public service supported all but one of these variances, or does today. And I'll get to that one variance in a moment. But we are supportive of these variances as well as the associated subdivision and rezoning because the variances allow a compatible infill development that aligns with the city's planning policies under Complete Communities 2.0. As well, it aligns with the residential infill guidelines. Specifically, this site is on a paved lane at the rear of the property, located within 44 meters or just over 144 feet from Portage Avenue. Is on an internal corner lot, so it's adjacent to a lane to the north, and also to the north it abuts a commercial use, as well as multifamily uses to the north. Yeah, so there was one thing to note, and it was that variance 1D was changed by the Assiniboia Community Committee at the hearing. This is for a north side yard setback. And this was approved without proper authority. So this will need to be corrected today. The intent of these side yards that were approved by the community committee was to essentially move the building further to the north and further away from the residential property that's to the south. However, the community committee, we were notified after the hearing, does not have authority under the charter to grant a greater variance than what was applied for by the applicant. So in the case of the north side yard, the community committee gave the applicant 2 feet more than they applied for. So this variance for the north side yard must not be granted. Should the appeals committee deny the appeal or allow the variance, they'll have to revert to the original 10.5 foot setback on the north side, or they could, require a greater north side yard if you want. But
So they set it to 8.5?
they set it to 8 on the north.
Okay.
Yeah. The reason was under the charter, a community committee can't grant a greater variance than what was applied for. Like give them greater entitlements. It could be less, but not more. There's no concern from the public service about the intent of that change that was made by the community committee, but just under the charter, it's not possible to grant a variance that's greater than what was applied for.
So how far? So what? The appeal committee can do it?
What
We have authority under the charter to?
It should be this variance 1D as was approved by the community committee this committee should revert it back to 10.5 feet.
So the appeal committee can't.
We don't have
set it to 8 feet.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So we can't do that either. So
It's an error.
under the charter, who can do that?
Nobody can. I don't believe.
Nobody? Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question though in regards to that. So to the north is commercial. Is there a street and then commercial?
There's a commercial building on Parkview. So there's this property, and then there's a lane that runs parallel to Portage Avenue. And then there's a small commercial building. And then at the corner of Portage and Parkview, there's a apartment block, like a 3-story apartment block.
So if you move it 8 feet, you're moving the new 6-unit dwelling closer to busier space.
Yeah, that was the intent of the community.
All right.
Very good, thank you. Robert, you were at that particular hearing.
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, so at this time, I'll note we did not have the appellant register to speak, although I'll note he is in the gallery. Would you like to come forward to speak as the appellant on the file?
No, they're all in opposition.
That's correct. Would the appellant like to come forward to speak on the file? No? Okay, we will move on to those in support of the appeal. First up, we will call up Brian Kipling. Brian, you'll have up to 10 minutes to make your presentation after you state your name.
My name is Brian Kipling. This is with reference to the decision that hopefully you're going to be coming in our favor. This is not a, quote, gentle density, unquote, housing permit as indicated by the developer. This is an intrusion and an invasion of the way of life in this single family dwelling community and changes the living dynamics of the area. Of the 24 in support persons, I'm not aware of one single one of them living in the community. Of the 71 in opposition persons, all are affected by the multifamily dwelling permit not being allowed, I should say here. Reducing the lot area by over 30% to build is not conducive with the dynamics of the area or the green space or the established area of the residents. This area has already reached the saturation point of people and vehicles for the infrastructure of water, sewer, electrical, and roadways. Over the years since I've moved into 186 Parkview Street since 1979, there have been very many sewer backups in this area, as documented by the CBC News. My home was included in one of these sewer backups. In July 2007, Scott Fielding recognized this problem and compensated 64 homes that were damaged by sewer backup flooding. The St. James area is still having sewer backup issues to this day. And the city right now is undergoing a sewer system project to address the situation. I don't believe that the city should allow any more building of this 8-family dwelling in the area, because I think it is going to be complicating the sewer backup area for the established residents living there right now. This is just like my opinion on the area right at the moment. And I think that before any multifamily dwellings are permits that are allowed, perhaps maybe we should address the sewer backup issue first and then consider something in the future. That's pretty much all I have to say at the moment.
Thank you. Did you present, sir, at community committee as well?
No, I did not. That was presented by another person.
Sure. And did you feel any of the changes made at the committee? There were some changes made in terms of height and units. Were you pleased with those changes?
My concerns for those variances, I think there's at least 8 variances that the developer is asking for. That's a lot of variances for one particular property. My concern also would be that snow issues for the south house dwelling, that any rain or snow issues would be blowing on top of that particular resident.
Thank you. Councillor Chambers?
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of your response or presentation here this morning, your major concern is with respect to sewer backup.
that is one of the ones, and the population density as well.
Okay, so do you know if there was an area study done with respect to sewer capacity? Because I know in St. Norbert, and that's one of the areas, that's the area that I represent. And I know that specifically along the Pembina Strip, there is sewer capacity constraint. There is plans to build a new lift station, but there's also a current study underway to determine what kind of pipe would be needed to support further density. Do you know if anything is occurring in the St. James area along the same fashion?
The only thing that I'm aware of is there's a pump station at the Assiniboine River, so at the junction of Assiniboine and Berry Road. And I do know that it's taxed every spring and some of the summers because they have additional pumps there to assist. And I do know that right in front of the Assiniboine School on Portage Avenue, they're addressing the situation right now as well. But they haven't been addressed yet. So that's why I'm against building multifamily dwelling on Parkview at this moment.
Do you know if you're part of the combined sewer district?
They were trying to separate it at one time. I'm not aware of what it is right at the moment. That was with overland flooding. That was what was stressing the sewer system at the time, and that's why we had sewer backups.
And you were personally impacted?
Yes, I was.
When's the last time?
2007, I believe.
Okay, and was it, and I, don't want to be graphic, but it was raw sewage coming out of your...
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, hold on.
Yep. I am familiar that is a CSO district that is almost complete from my understanding. In terms of separating sewers, similar to a neighborhood in my area where you used to get sewer backup. But so 2007 was the last sewer backup. How far from the pump house is Parkview?
I believe it's 4 streets over.
4 streets to the west?
4 streets to the east.
To the east. Oh, okay. Okay. Did you see construction out on some of those streets in the past?
Yes, I have.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Nothing further at this time. Appreciate your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Up next, in support of the appeal, we have Kelly Ryback. Kelly, if you'd like to come forward, you'll have up to 10 minutes to make your presentation after you state your name.
Thank you very much. I do have PowerPoint that I submitted. Let me connect that. Share screen. I'm getting pretty good at this. Thank you, counselors and publics and clerks and public service. I appreciate the opportunity to do this. I was part of the original hearing. To reiterate some of the concerns, what I have up on the screen, that's the existing property and the neighboring property to the right. It is a former place of worship. It's now being used as a dog rescue. It's just under 6,000 square foot lot. It is 34% less than the requirement as per the bylaw. In the original application, it was for 8 units. You've heard that 45 feet, now limited to 28 feet, but also at the time of the hearing, the public service recommended only a duplex for the lot size and location. And then that was before the Assiniboine Community Committee. For transparency, in my life, I've lived in bungalows, duplex, and for almost my entire youth. high-rise apartment, townhouses, and as I said, it's currently living in a bungalow, almost a lifelong St. James resident, home with my wife. That wanted to make sure the community was informed and engaged. The next slide. That was the original plan of 8 units, being 2 in the basement, being over 45 feet tall. What we don't have with after the Assembly and Community Committee hearing is a new site plan for the 6 units limited to 28 feet. And I think it's challenging to approve variances when we don't know what the structure is going to be and how that could impact the neighbor to the south and the neighborhood in general. Also, this front of the building, as this one existed with the balconies, extends 8 feet beyond the front of the neighboring property. So from the balcony, folks could practically look into the neighbor's living room. And the original application asked for only 6 feet to the property line on the south side, and it was changed to 8 feet. Earlier, you talked about on the north side going to 8.5 feet. It was to be greater than that because there was a parking spot between the building and the back lane, and that parking spot was eliminated during the Assembly Community Committee hearing, so allowed them to be closer to the back lane. Also, just to further describe what is north of the back lane is a retail location, but 3-story apartment block and service buildings. Is there a question?
Can you clarify? When I look at the building on a map, it's facing west and east. And you're saying balconies are on the south side and
No, on the west side balconies
okay.
to the neighbor to the south.
Kelly, do you want to go back one slide? Yeah,
So
sure.
the neighbor to the south is
Okay, so the blue
that
building.
building.
Okay.
The balconies
The
will be,
original proposal had balconies that
The
were,
balcons are facing west.
The-
but
the
you
whole
say they
structure
will
would be-
able to look into the living room of the building to the south.
right, and
Okay.
then plus extending beyond the back of the neighbor's building, they lose
Okay.
the privacy of
I
their backyard.
got you now. Thank
Okay.
you.
To the north, there's a 3-story apartment block. The idea that because it's proximity to Portage Avenue, there'd be 1 parking spot per unit has not been realized in several instances. And in particular, there's parking for 1 unit for every suite in the apartment block. And yet apartment residents are parking on Parkview Street. Okay. Also, without a new site plan, we don't know what would be on the south side. Because if there's a staircase there, that staircase could be within 4 feet, 3 feet of the fence. That's not, that 8 feet does not include staircases or sidewalk area. It'd be best if that was, again, with challenge on how you can approve a variance without knowing what's going to be built there. But this was the original site plan, building site with the 8-unit plan. And if you look onto the right side of the picture, that's where they have the 6 parking stalls. And right now with the variances, they would still be allowed 6 parking stalls. When those are cleared, there is no room for snow storage. And along those parking stalls is the back lane that separates it to River Oaks Drive. That back lane intersects with the back lane parallel to Portage Avenue. And a snowplow has not been down there, and it is a rutted mess right now, and it's going to be even worse once things start melting. Also, they have the garbage recycling on the northeast corner of that lot along the back lane parallel to Portage Avenue. You can add in food containers in there in the future, plus yard waste. And on garbage recycling pickup day, the other impact it has, beside the apartment block on Portage Avenue, is Anderson Orthopedics, which provides prosthetics for those amputees. It provides braces for polio victims. That's where they get dropped off in order to gain access to the building. And during garbage recycling, with this amount of time that would impact those customers, those patients of Anderson Orthopedics. Across Parkview on Portage Avenue, there's also a hair salon and a fireworks retailer. And again, those customers park on Parkview. Parking is at a premium. So when you introduce 6-unit townhouse or small apartment with more vehicles than units plus visitors, it's going to be making a greater parking problem. My initial concerns also, even with the current with the current variances approved, again, is intrusion on the neighboring property, the parking, and drainage. And particularly, we don't know what would be on that south side and how that would impact that neighbor to the south. The neighbor to the south is a young family. The one partner is a psych nurse in Selkirk with shift work, with a build this big, with the duration and the noise and the equipment. It'll be severely impacting the life for the whole time of the construction. And we're supporting a smaller complex with less units. There's a quick picture just of the street, and that's the side of Parkview across from it. There were 75 signatures on petition, 72 in the immediate area against the proposal back then. And again, I'd like to reiterate, the public service recommended a duplex, and the developer came in with an 8-unit, compromising on 6 units. But even we're saying that's too big for the area and too many impacts. And again, I would recommend grant our appeal. So when they come back with a new plan, they come back with new variances to support the new plan. And because the posting of the variance will then inform the public as to what is being proposed, allow them to review it and allow them to be engaged. If you do not grant the appeal, the residents have no info other than being able to track the agendas of the Assiniboine Community Committee, would they learn when the next proposed building comes in place. But if you grant the appeal, they at least have to apply and it will be posted and publicized. As in fairness to the community as to what can come. I would say that if a plan came in for a 4-plex with a greater distance from the south side and not in extending beyond the neighbor's property with less parking, could be acceptable to the community. But a 6-plex of this size is not in character and too many impacts to the neighborhood. And if you allow a smaller structure like that, you're claiming almost, I would estimate 760 square feet of additional green space, allowing you to honor your Montreal pledge, allow for more absorption from rain and melting snow, and more conducive to what the neighborhood is. Thank you very much.
Kelly, thank you. That was a detailed presentation, as is in your style. Kelly, question for you.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the documents before us do outline a plan approval to community committee if anything's approved today? Plan approval to
Yes.
community committee.
Right.
Right. And you're right. I mean, it's difficult sometimes for residents to know when those things come up, but you're certainly on the ball about checking agendas and so on. And I think when there's that much interest, folks would tune into when potentially that community committee meeting would happen. Now,
Yes.
Go
So in theory, but I can tell you that during leading up to the initial hearing, many people were not aware of what was involved because they didn't see the sign, they didn't see the newspaper ads, so they didn't know to look or to request from the public service additional information. I happened to see the newspaper ad, and I'm familiar with the area. I go past it almost every day. It's the area that my wife's family grew up in. I have friends in that area. So I checked out the posting, and then I looked things up online. And then what I did, because I've already experienced when neighborhoods are not engaged or informed. And what happens if you miss the opportunity to present at a hearing? You miss a lot of opportunities for appeal or engagement or to enact change. So what I did on my own accord, down Parkview Street and the side of River Oaks that shares the back lane, I delivered flyers to just inform them and where they can get more information. And I gave my contact information. I collected inquiries. I answered questions. And then I, with 2 other people, went up and down with a petition that we were able to reference the flyer I put out and then engage in conversation. And people, when we explained what was being proposed, that's where we gained the opposition to the application. People were not informed without that activity. And again, on a different property, happens to be with the same developer on 613 Parkdale, they didn't pay attention to the hearing process, and that has its own issues. That's not what this is. But I would just suggest, we don't know what the next proposed building is going to be. Therefore, please grant the appeal so the next time they apply, and welcome, the neighborhood is properly informed. We don't know if the ward counselor would take that activity to inform them. I would definitely be looking at it, but there's only so much I can do.
Did the residents have ample time to present at community committee? They did come out and present.
There were multiple presentations and or written submissions.
You know, Mr. Galston, last question I have, Mr. Galston mentioned about the variance and how he feels amendment should come forward today. Any thoughts on that?
That the two that concern me is the quantity of parking, which impacts the quantity of units, the closeness to the south property, and just in general on building plan approval, not to extend past the neighboring property. Again, with the issues of drainage, privacy, impacting streets, that right now, from a civil and community committee, the south distance is 8 feet. My preference would be that would be a greater distance. I would also suggest not to allow the parking and the variances to the borders, just so that the developer would have to submit a plan at a smaller footprint or apply for a new variance with a new plan. Again, we don't know what the plan is. 8 feet might be adequate if it was all grass and bushes between that and the property line. But if there's a staircase, and depending on the location of the staircase and the location of balconies, is concerning. But I'm challenging you not to have variances without knowing what the building plan is. And my also concern is I would ask you to consider, are developers submitting grandiose plans and then be compromises to what they probably intended to do in the first place? Because if they submitted what they intended to do in the first place, that might not be allowed. There is a compromise. And I know that at the Civil and Community Committees, councillors expressed that they just felt the proposed design was too large for the lot, and that's why it changed from 8 to 6 and others.
Six Flags, just to be clear, you didn't see the design.
It wasn't presented in it. There's no known design to the public.
Thank you. Councillor Edie?
First question, so you visited the dog rescue that's in the existing church building as it stands right now, right?
I just know that there's a dog rescue there. I've not been inside it, but I've been on
How
location.
busy it is, though? Like, are there lots of visitors coming and going, or?
The residents, to be honest, Councillor Edie, I haven't been there where I've seen a lot of activity. Also, I want to say the entire back lot is concrete paved.
Yes.
So there will be any kind of improvement to what exists,
Mhm.
but there's no parking access off that east back lane.
Okay, I'm just trying to get an idea here. Conspiracy. Okay. So there is an apartment block. How many units in that apartment block? Did you look at that one that's nearby?
I can only say based on the quantity of windows is 3 stories tall. I don't know if there's basement suites.
Might be 12 suites there or something like that.
There's a minimum of 12.
Did you know that when you're looking to build density, it's always being referred, well, there's an apartment block right there, so maybe it's meant for density, so therefore you're looking at it as a developer. Do you ever think that they might look at it that way and say, well, it's already been identified for density, so we're going to apply for density, right?
Which that is separated by the back
Do
lane.
you consider that? Do you ever consider? It doesn't matter whether it's separated by a back lane, it's right there, right?
But right on Parkview is right in that area, it's single dwelling units. And again, if there's a Councillor, if it was.
Anyway, I'm just trying to get your conspiracy theory thing going here, and I'm rebutting it. That's all I'm doing for you. So do you realize that when a developer looks and says, oh, look, there's already density there. We're gonna go for what we think we can get max, right?
Don't understand that.
All right.
I understand
It's not
their
a plot.
desire.
It's not a plot to say, oh, when we got what we really wanted to. I just want you to understand that.
No, and they're trying to look at, they have to look at their return. I know that at the hearing, I had a brief conversation with the owner. And rent is gonna be targeted at the 1,800, 2,000 and above range.
It's a nice neighborhood.
But, there's the neighborhood is
You answered
already.
my question. I just want you to read.
Fair enough. The neighborhood is already challenged with drainage, flooding, overland flooding, and parking.
That's years ago though. Just so you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your.
Okay, appreciate that. Thanks for the opportunity.
So that concludes those we had pre-registered to speak in support of the appeal. Just to confirm, is there anyone in the gallery who would like to speak in support of the appeal? Seeing none. As discussed, the applicant has indicated that he's not able to make it. So just turning to the gallery, is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition to the appeal? Seeing none. Anyone for information on the appeal? Yeah, at this time we could have questions for the public service.
Councillor Ely?
So there will be a new plan, right? So what was approved at community committee was basically a two-story building.
Correct.
And there's still possibility that two of those suites could be in the basement, right?
That's correct. We haven't seen any new design that reflects the community committee decision with regard to height and density.
Okay. So I did have a concern about, sounded like they were talking about a substantial balcony, but in their original design, did each unit have a balcony?
I'm just gonna look quickly. The front elevation shows balconies, so there would be balconies on the front, kind of on the running the entire, almost the entire width of the building, or the entire frontage of the building.
And it's and those balconies would be oriented towards single family home.
They'd be facing out onto Parkview. There's a single family house across the street, and then I guess one of the concerns identified was that they also are beside a single family house, so you could kind of balconies could be looking from the side onto.
Okay, but now they're limited, just hang on. So I just want to confirm. So now they're limited to only 2 stories. I could see maybe a problem with the 3rd story, but okay.
Is there anything else like this in the area? For the next one?
No, other than properties that are right on Portage Avenue, there's no other multifamily infill developments or.
Would a design like this work without balconies?
Potentially. I mean, I would defer to the applicant. It's amenity space for tenants, outdoor amenity space. There may be a privacy design, like mitigation,
Right. Like
mitigating privacy concerns. Off the top of my head, I can't think of real examples, but that could be a condition. Yeah,
A screen in.
or like privacy on the south side, west side, whatever. Yeah,
sure they want privacy too, right?
So the concern that I have in the plans that had come forward, the parking I guess that would be on the north side of the building?
the east side.
East side of the building, okay. So snow clearing or snow storage would be an issue. Just based on how that's set up. You got the public lane there. Yeah, where would they dump snow?
Well, yeah, the plans they've shown, not a lot of space, you know, in order to potentially up around the garbage enclosures, kind of at the northeast corner.
See a lot of space here.
Good question,
Mm,
Mr. Chambers.
Yeah, that was the question. That was it.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So the commercial entity is across the back lane from this to the east?
To the north.
Oh, it's
There's two back lanes. There's one.
yeah, the north, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not that close to where they are, right?
It's across the lane on the north, and then it's kind of the next property over. So, you know, just that lane is approximately,
So just out of curiosity, how much space is there? I know a lot of commercial places, when they clear their snow, it has to be hauled away.
yeah. This is a pretty small commercial building. It doesn't really look like it has accessory parking.
Right.
And the reduction in units came up at the committee. There wasn't different plans presented, right? It was just, it came up at community committee.
No, yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So if it is rejected here, would it give the developer the opportunity to come back with new plans?
Right, they'd have to start all over.
Well, they have approval for the subdivision and rezoning of the land. But any new proposal, you know, would likely require a new variance application.
How could we see, what are the options? Or see something more about snow and balconies, is that by bringing them forward next month at this committee? Asking them to come maybe with revised plan?
Yeah, that could be possible. I don't know where they are in their redesign process. They would, yeah, those requirements, like limiting it to 28 feet, 6 units, that's through a zoning agreement. So that is zoning agreement, you know, still needs to be entered into and all of those steps. Yeah, or otherwise, if this variance was rejected today, then they could apply for new variances, and that would go to the Assiniboia Community Committee at a public hearing.
Mr. Clerk, yeah, the developer isn't here today, the consultant.
Correct.
So what is an opportunity for this committee to hear more information?
If the committee wanted to, they could certainly adjourn to the next meeting on February 26th.
And they may have some plans. I mean, if they want to move forward, you would think they would start their plans because the meeting happened around that.
That's right. This was in late October.
You know what, Madam Chairperson? Given that there is no plans, I think you're right, Madam Chairperson. I think right at this point, although I guess we can adjourn it after there's a rebuttal from the appellant.
Do we have to?
I would like to hear, like, I'd like to get some answers, right? Like, where is the developer gonna put snow? We need to ask those questions,
So
right?
Mr. Councilor, those comments would be here at the rebuttal or adjourn now and leave public representations open?
There would be no rebuttal, just because the appellant did not register to speak.
Great.
Oh, right.
So it would be leaving public representations open. Do we need to set a date right now?
Correct. It should be adjourned to a specific date and time. This Public Works is still on the rotation for the February 26th meeting.
Let's do it.
It seems a little.
So I'm moving to adjourn this to the February 26th.
Do we know what the agenda is for February 26th? How busy it's going to be?
We do have 3 properties so far on that one.
As well.
I'm not willing to make a decision until I get some answers from the applicant. So I am moving adjournment to that meeting.
To the 26th?
To the 26th, yes.
Just for the record, I'll state that that is for the February 26th, 2025 meeting of the Appeal Committee at 9:30 a.m. at 510 Main Street.
Are there company other appeals? You're not sure. Search.
Currently, is 3 other properties on the agenda.
There's some simple ones, I know what's coming. So
In that context, then, if we adjourn this to that meeting, the chair will not be able to sit in on that meeting, but would be able to sit in on other matters.
The chair is actually unable to sit on this item anyway, as she was
Yeah,
involved in
that's
the
what he
original
was
hearing.
asking. Okay, so we can do the 26th if for some reason the developer isn't ready because they know they're listening to what the conversation is, then they.
well, he's gonna have to send somebody if he can't make it. That's all there is.
But they may not be ready with their plans, so they could ask for another adjournment.
Any further adjournment would require a special meeting, just because it does need to be the same body hearing the file.
I just wanna,
Councilor Ely?
the footprint probably isn't gonna change because they took away a floor. So I think that they'll be able to answer some questions. Anyway,
Okay, so I think we have the motion, Mr. Clerk, on the table here. Councilor Ely moves layover to the February.
So that would be to adjourn the hearing to the February 26th, 2025 meeting of the Appeal Committee at
26 or 25?
26th,
26, yes.
9:30 a.m. Council Building, 510 Main.
It'll be the same hearing body, of course. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary? That's carried. Meeting adjourned.
Need a motion?
Councilor Chambers moves adjournment. All in favor?
I,
Contrary? Carried.